Just beside the pub called the Mitre, on the corner of leafy Holland Park Avenue in West 11, begins Ladbroke Grove. It runs straight as a dart northwestwards towards the Harrow Road, 2 miles and 350 yards distant. Given a stout pair of shoes and a level of personal fitness which can traverse a fair-sized hill, the whole length of Ladbroke Grove can be walked in half an hour or so. It is this fair-sized hill, topped now by St. John's Church, that is the summit which gives its name to Notting Hill. And from the site of this church, on top of this hill, was once one of the wonders of London. The year of Queen Victoria's accession, 1837, saw the inauguration of a new venture, an attempt to establish a racecourse which would rival Epsom and Ascot in its attractions. The prospectus, issued in 1836, stated that
an extensive range of land, in a secluded situation, has been taken and thrown into one great park and is being fenced in by a strong, close, high paling. This park affords the facilities of a steeplechase course, intersected by banks and every description of fence, and also of a racecourse distinct from the steeplechase course. And each course is capable of being suited to a 4-mile race for horses of the first class.
The founder of this enterprise was a Mr. John White of Brace Cottage, Notting Hill, who had leased about 200 acres of ground from Mr. James Weller Ladbroke, the owner of the land. The course as originally laid out was bounded approximately by Portobello Road, Elgin Crescent, Clarendon Road, and the south side of Ladbroke Square. The main entrance was through an arch at the junction of Kensington Park Road with Pembridge Road. It was also intended to provide facilities for all forms of equestrian exercise and for other outdoor sports on non-racing days. The first meeting was held on the 3rd of June 1837, with 3 races for a total prize list of £250, and was followed by a second meeting on the 19th. Although it was agreed that the company was brilliant, and that many splendid equipages were present, the quality of the racing met with a mixed reception. One writer called the horses entered
animated dog's meat.
Furthermore, Mr. White, in his enthusiasm to enclose the course, had blocked up a right-of-way that crossed its centre, and which enabled local residents to avoid the Potteries, now Nottingdale, but then a notorious slum. Some local inhabitants took the law into their own hands and cut the paling down at the point where the footpath entered the grounds of the racecourse. As a result, the crowds on the first and subsequent days' racing were increased by the presence of unruly persons who, taking advantage of the footpath dispute, entered without paying for admission. The next 2 years saw all attempts by Mr. White to close the footpath frustrated. There were summonses, counter-summonses, assaults and petitions to Parliament by the inhabitants and the local authorities. There was even a plan at one time to make a subway under the racecourse. But in 1839 Mr. White abandoned the unequal struggle and relinquished the eastern half of the ground. The racecourse, renamed Victoria Park in honour of the young new Queen, was extended northward to the vicinity of the present St. Helen's Church, St. Quintin's Avenue, and as the prospectus pointed out,
the racecourse was lengthened and much improved, and without interfering with the rights of the public, the footpath, which intersected the old ground, will now run at the outside of the park.
A management committee composed of noblemen and gentlemen was formed, and £50,000 capital was raised by the sale of £10 shares, the holder of 2 shares being entitled to a transferable ticket of admission. Although the footpath question had been resolved, a more serious obstacle to the success of the venture soon became apparent. The soil was clay, which made for heavy going and required extensive drainage. The nature of the ground made the course unusable at certain times of the year, and this fault proved impossible to overcome. At the meeting held on June 4, 1841, the last race, a steeplechase, was run. A set of 4 coloured lithographs from paintings by Henry Aiken Jr. commemorate this event. In all, 13 meetings had been held during the 4 years of the course's history. In 1840, a Mr. Jacob Connop had been granted building leases for the eastern part of the racecourse relinquished by White. and by March 1841 he seems to have become the proprietor of the racecourse as well. By the following year, Connop, in conjunction with another builder, John Duncan, was developing the estate for the ground landlord, James Ladbroke. Houses were built in what is now Kensington Park Road and Ladbroke Square, but in 1845 Connop was declared bankrupt, and the work had to be taken over by others. The land was being developed soon afterwards, as James Weller Ladbroke began building crescents of houses on the former racecourse. The circular shape of Stanley and Lansdowne crescents follows part of the track. Thus it would seem that no one closely involved in the Hippodrome venture gained much from it. Today the names Hippodrome Mews and Hippodrome Place remain to remind people that Notting Hill might under other circumstances have become another Epsom or Ascot.